I had pasted the maggots in the minds of the universe, and I was not offended, for I knew I had to rise above it all or drown in my own shit.
Yep. That's how they do it. That's how they
You
do
really
it.
want to just hear pure funk, it's just George Clinton.
It works
I
for
think that's the only
everybody.
place you really find
It
it.
works for everybody, bro.
George didn't just create a sound, he created funk attitude.
Women Knight knows.
He shows us how to take the art of our
Overton Lloyd
minds
knows.
and turn it into the art of this world.
He did the art for Cosby Slop and all these. He did the art for all the shit.
Trickster. He's one of the ultimate jokesters and tricksters.
He's probably got about more than 3 or 4 sides, maybe about 8 or 9 characters in there. There's a whole lot of people in there.
George is the guru. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah,
George is from another planet.
He's from there. He's from another planet. That's where he's coming from another
He freaked
planet.
the world out.
He came from another planet. What George Clinton does is the shit. That's it. That's the thing. From doo-wop to barbershop. It goes back to 1956 when the Colemans had the doo-wop shit. They got Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers did their performance. The same year that the Colemans came up.
Music came into my life. That's something that I wanted to do. Probably when I was like 12 years old.
I mean, George Clinton was born in the South, especially, what was it? North Carolina?
When I saw Frankie Lyman doing Why Do Fools Fall in Love, that was it.
Why Do Fools Fall in Love?
Every school
Why Do Fools Fall in Love with them?
Was in some kind of group after that.
Why Do Fools Fall
They
in Love with
started off
those?
as a doo-wop group. You know, just like everybody else, you know, the Parliaments, you know, singing on the street.
George Clinton was with them, bro.
By the time we was 16, we were probably one of the best groups around the area. We won all the talent shows. We got our hair done, you know, and the waves and the doo-wop looks. And after that, we started working in the barbershop. We started doing our own hair, each other's hair.
They would do your hair, and then after they done did your hair, they stand around and sing.
We was making lots of money frying hair.
Any stylist, what do? They take your energy that you have and they give it a whole extra flavor. And so George was already developing that technique with people that came into the barbershop, and they got their music together, and they decided, you know, it's time to take this to another level.
The group itself was formed in the barbershop in Plainfield, New Jersey.
Yeah, Plainfield, New Jersey is where it came from.
I was born in Kannapolis, North Carolina.
Yeah.
An outhouse. My mother thought she had to go to the bathroom. So funk was predestined with me.
4 Tops. They did the performance. They did the performance back in those days.
1960. Beginning of Motown.
Old school, bro. That kind of brought the old school and all that.
You know, everybody wanted to go to Motown. And Parliaments was the prime target for that.
They liked his sound, but he was told he was one of many.
You got the Miracles of Smokey Robinson. You got 4 Tops, the Temptations. And then Parliaments came to Rebel Out too. And Parliaments moved in to Rebel Out Records, and they did a song "Want to Testify."
Crack the inner circle of the Motown operation.
So then we did a record for Parliament.
Testifying.
That was a hit. In 3 weeks, I finished it.
I was listening to the radio one
This
day.
is years before Maggot's Brain came out. What, 1972? It came out,
and it totally blew my mind. You know, because I was into.
They performed that song in like 1983.
This kind of sound like Motown, but it was like, oh, this is a little strange.
Then the album came out like 1972.
Psychedelic.
And it sounded like
I forgot about it. I mean, George Clinton's brother had passed away, so it's due to that album. Yeah, when I Testify song, they performed that song in 1969, like on that show. And that record was played in 1967.
They'll probably tell you they weren't prepared for the chart action that they had, and doing tours with legitimate groups that had steps and had coordinated outfits and everything. But that was the style. They were the Parliaments, right? Named after a cigarette.
Parliament.
Never was a better time.
Parliament.
You never had a better reason.
Cigarettes has already been out years ago.
They got a few singles out on this label that mysteriously disappeared shortly afterward.
And that's where the name.
That's what the Parliaments became. That's what Parliaments became. That's what Parliaments became Parliament.
Parliaments. We couldn't use it no more. He went to Billy, Eddie, Tiki, Bernie Worrell, and Ty Ross. They were the band, the backup band for Parliament. So he just took the band and put them up front and made Parliaments the background singers for Funkadelic.
The sign of the times, the birth of Funkadelic. Funkadelic. It's the birth of them, bro. Temptations, man. Temptations did the performance. I mean, they did on that show.
The thing was, with so many African Americans that were artists and entertainers at that time, it was to stay safe, because we can't do like that.
R.I.P. Malia Franco, man. I'm just
smoke.
Malia Franco died all the years ago.
Again, here we come with the sign of the times. Everything must change.
You gotta go all the way through the Woodstock thing. Dancing and smoking weed and all that. Having sex and everything.
We run into the hippies and almost talking about Vietnam War. I didn't know nothing about the Vietnam War. I hadn't even registered. And I hadn't even noticed yet that all my friends, well, all people I knew was going on and wasn't coming back yet.
The hippies, bro.
Avoid the
Vietnam,
political realities.
LSD usage, the Black Panthers.
Black Panthers were a prominent organization. The whole Black Power movement was an undercurrent running through the psychedelic rock movement.
Yeah. We've got Jimmy out there. We've got Sly out there. Yeah. And they sort of opened it up for the changes that were coming with Funkadelic.
You can testify to that? Can you?
The Black community itself was going through a bit of a divergence between smooth soul and hard funk.
And Funkadelic was that type of Black band that said, hey, we want the white boy deal.
Played with the Vanilla Fudge one day and used their equipment and ran away with it.
That's because of Coleman Funkadelic's equipment, bro. Got what's in somebody else's car. Somebody's got a record with the
sheets and diapers. And it's like turned the music up loud as it could.
Coleman's equipment.
And it was like 10 Jimi Hendrix.
And George was going to be in a dashiki with nothing on underneath it, jump on the tables with everything hanging. Okay? Trust me now.
Malia.
I'm telling you the truth.
Malia.
It's going to be hanging, swanging, and dangling.
Malia, George's going to raise some sheet just to show his dick. He ain't going to fool himself, man. With that white sheet.
People thought he was crazy. That was crazy. So he was getting attention. And that was the main goal, is to get attention.
Yeah, the attention is what they ask him to get the attention.
Since we were late doing it, I said, I'm going to have to do it so radical that it seemed like we was on time.
Right, we realized, we're raggedy, but maybe we should take this raggedy approach and turn it into something good. Let's turn it into a positive.
The approach is there.
Something that really is what we're about.
They got to take that approach quick when George was wearing the Indian headdress.
We saw the white rock groups had blues and rock and roll. We realized we gave that stuff away. So now we're trying to capture the tempo of music, which was the mid-tempo, which was the nasty music.
When you sit there and you think of these Black people, this Black band, really doing rock music. you know, and that's kind of rare now.
They try to do rock music, bro.
Black people used to really like rock music.
I love rock music. That's how all the members came in.
And being that we had used the metal fudge equipment and so what this loud sound like, we was psychedelic out of our mind.
Fudge's equipment. Y'all use that equipment.
Boston,
I mean, George, you and the group, George, you and your friends, you use the equipment.
And
that's what happened to you, George. That's how you got. That's how you started getting high and hold the beer.
You get a little creative. You take some acid, but you gonna get real creative.
Real creative is what you see through the hippie shit. You see all the hippie shit. You go see all the Sgt. Peppers, and you see all the Sgt. Peppers, and you see all the John Lennons in the world. Rest in peace to John Lennon, bro. All those people that still alive was Sgt. Pepper.
Sgt. Pepper. I lost it. And then
I lost it.
I lost it
you
completely.
Lost all of it. You lost it.
Because it was a record that combined.
Yeah, George, you lost
everything I liked about music. And so we got ready to think of, I wanted to do an album with the concept like Sgt. Pepper.
They're from 1970. That's around the summer of 1970 when they had to go perform. That's around the summer of 1970. That's where they did their performance. August 14th of that year, they had to do a performance. Coleman and Funkadelic did the performance.
My first Funkadelic album is
the first
Funkadelic.
Album. The first
album. Make up a word to describe it, you'd have to call it
album
Funkadelic.
Number 1. You're going nuts, bro. August of 1970, they're going nuts.
Deep Pocket has a grinding.
August 14th, 1970, on a Friday night, they're acting a fool and try to dance and run around like a bunch of idiots.
Free your mind and your ass will follow.
Yep.
The kingdom of heaven is within.
Album number 2 comes out.
Ass will follow. I think
Free Your Mind. This is the second album from Funkadelic came out, and the third album. Then Friday night, August 14, 1970, they did the performance. Coleman and Funkadelic did the performance.
Did it all in one day. We had echo plexus on everything was sound effects.
And then later in 1972, the second, I think their third album came out. Their third album came out. Maggot's Brain. Maggot's Brain, their third album.
Black folks had a real broad range of influences. They was deep people.
He'll put Bach, Beethoven, stuff.
Album number 3.
In a heart.
That's what Maggot's came out. Maggot's Brain. That's the third album that came out.
We're saying we all had it together until we don't know what to do to get out of it.
The third album, Maggot's Brain. Maggot's Brain came out.
We just as bad as the other.
Maggot's Brain came out. That was dedicated to George Clinton's brother. That's what it always be about.
Was probably the most polished and most frightening Funkadelic album, to come out. Well, it was only the third. And then here comes this crazy looking record with the screaming black woman's head on the cover coming out the ground.
It was on the cover, Ricky.
This music.
Ricky, it's on the cover. We got a woman's head sticking out the dirt, bro.
Takes things to a whole different place.
They got a woman's head sticking out of the dirt, bro.
What is going on?
Got a woman's head sticking out of the dirt, bro. Maggot's Brain. That 50-year-old album that came out. Screaming woman's head sticking out of the dirt. You see that? That's based on the death of Robert Clinton. That's
Eddie Hazel, when he did Maggot Brain, he came in one day, a little down in the dumps, I guess, but just surrounded Eddie, just put him in the middle of the floor out there in the studio.
Eddie Hazel, rest in peace. The late Eddie Hazel did that shit.
Eddie's a really emotional guy. As good as he could sing, he wouldn't sing many songs on the album because he get happy to the song when it's and start crying.
And then what George did was just take everybody else.
That would hurt too. That was gonna hurt too.
The bass, and just kept
that would hurt too.
Ding, 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 ding.
That's based on the broken home shit that George Clinton was coming from.
When George had Eddie surrounded with all those amps, he told him to play like his mother had died.
A family member. That's like losing a family member.
Right.
That's what it's based on.
When you get down into it, Funkadelic has arrived. Funkadelic has, made its case. We are the most authentic expression of the realities of Black life.
Americans is Young was wow.
Still happy birthday to my mother, Darlene, after Marie Coleman
project that we worked on. We, meaning Boosie and his brother Catfish and our horn players, because we came from James Brown and formulated a group called the House Guests, and then Joy saw us and we became Funkadelic.
It wasn't until Boosie got fired from James Brown's band. I think they all took acid or something and got a little too high, and James Brown runs a tight ship. Boosie spoke on how it's different, James Brown was like, you're docked if you miss rehearsal, this and that. Have to play it like this, keep it the same every bar. George was like, do what you feel, baby.
Go to have a funky good time. Go to have a funky good time.
Let's go with this shit.
Go to have a funky good time. Go to have a funky good
like this.
time. Take a bump. Gotta take a high.
Boosie would help me put together something called P-Funk. He brought the one with him, the concept of what James was using. Then he brought Maceo and Fred with him, Pee-wee. So now we had an army.
The concept of the one is a deep concept. For Bootsy, it's a musical thing.
If you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, you accent the one so hard that James Brown always we want the funk. Give up the funk. Oh, we want the funk. You saying everything hit on that downbeat.
But that's just the musical definition. There's a social, cosmological definition that has to do with everybody on the same pulse with the rhythms of the universe.
So the one
it's on
is musically strong. The one in real life is strong. Everything's on the one. Everybody together. And it makes things stronger.
Yo, did you see Bootsy, baby?
Bootsy had much respect for George
Collins,
because
man.
George was not trying to stay in the norm African-American black bubble. The R&B and the soul thing.
Bootsy and George
James Brown, rest in peace. James Brown fired Bootsy, bro. Because Bootsy Collins was showing up at the band on stage late. Bootsy Collins was showing up on stage late, bro.
In terms of the music,
getting high and all that.
Bootsy was the bottom. He was the power. He was
smoked out on acid.
And George was the brainiac, the genius who would capture it, and together in the funk market, they were the mighty funk duo.
Wow. Yep. Even everybody was already there, jamming it up.
I think one of my abilities in this, is to attract nuts, crazy folks, and then help them or let them do whatever they do. As a matter of fact, I tell them, do everything they tell you not to do in the studio. I can always take it off.
They can do it with Bootsy, dude.
The best way to me in the studio for George is like title funk referee.
Yep.
It's like you've got 20 individuals in the studio and he's in the center.
You got that right, Dawn.
And his ears
You got that
like,
right. You got that right, Dawn.
He's got these like radars for ears and they're honing in all at the same time.
He was not the type of producer to tell you what to do.
Oh, yeah.
He was the type of producer to inspire you to do your best. And just let you fly, let you do what you want,
Say like maybe Michael Hampton is over in the corner noodling on a guitar line.
Michael Hampton, bro.
Or someone's doing something tapping
I seen a little
or maybe on the railing of some stairs. And George say, do that again?
I see a
little getting stuff out of people.
I see a
little, and putting people together who wouldn't ordinarily work together.
Oh, he was on that
tour.
tour.
A lot of that, and the people who would hate each other if they had to. But through myself, they can work together and appreciate themselves after for having done it.
One of the things that you might hear George do was, who's the worst singer in the room?
Oh.
All right, it's your turn. Get in there.
So he's just like soaking it in like a big sponge. He is enhancing and creating and enhancing and creating and putting it on wax.
Cosmic Slop.
Cosmic Slop.
Overton Lloyd did all the work on all those art.
Musically,
Overton Lloyd did all the artwork, bro.
It shows George Clinton and the band's attempt to be as clean and accessible as possible with their funkadelic sound. However, George Clinton hired a young visual artist from Chicago named Pedro Bell to do the album artwork, which was anything but clean.
Pedro Bell's doing all the work like Overton Lloyd's doing. Overton Lloyd's doing all the work, bro.
And it was funny as hell.
He's had some great artists.
George would give Pedro a concept.
Pedro and Overton like the artists that wanted to do all the work. Stozo knows
exactly what George wanted. Is that George wrote it himself.
You could scribble in all those little statements like,
there is nothing harder to stop than an
same stuff they showed me on that previous documentary.
What time it is.
On that previous documentary.
He was like our only place to see African Americans, Asian Americans, Chinese girls with big butts instead of little skinny girls, girls with kinky hair.
But he came up with ways of interpreting whatever I was feeling or saying that satisfied me.
One thing that really draws me to George Clinton is his way of thinking. I actually got to watch him use language to shift the paradigm.
Hey, baby, here's the record.
We heard the Parliament.
The Parliament's up for the downstroke.
Casablanca Records had already released that promo. Right before Casablanca Records got purchased by Polygram.
Then became free again.
Same record label that the Gap Band came out of.
I made a deal with somebody who I always wanted to sing with, and that was Neil Bogart.
Once George hooked up with him, the two had
Neil
sort
Bogart's
of like minds in terms of hustling and marketing, and coming up with wild new ideas, and that's when he resurrected.
That's Fuzzy. That's Fuzzy from the Parliament.
The first record was Up for the Downstroke.
Yeah.
It did a little bit.
Up for the Downstroke.
Chocolate City.
That came from there.
Made a lot of noise.
This classical jazz riffing and vamping that was going on, but unlike anything else in black music.
Chocolate City, Mothership Connection.
Chocolate City and its vanilla suburbs was a way of really putting a black identity into black music at a time when integration was
the black exploit. It goes back to the black exploitation films. It goes back to the black exploitation films.
But that's a temporary condition too. Can you dig it?
It goes back to the black exploitation films.
About integration so much, folks forgot to talk about what is Black America gonna be doing after all this integration. And George Clinton had a sense of a sociological vision that not everybody was up on.
God bless DC and its vanilla suburbs.
Funkadelic is more guitar radical. It's the rock side of what Parliament Funkadelic is. And Parliament is a more vocal side. Like you will see that there are more vocalists on the Parliament records than there may be on the Funkadelic records. Then you might see a little glimmer of both going in between. So what difference?
Funkadelic is funky, the Parliament is tight. You go as far out and funky as you can, make it as tight as you can. You bring that together, you're on the one with some P-funk.
The combination of Bernie's crazy 11/13 over 18 minor over major chord, right there on the one, with Boosie's bass note, with that cymbal crash, and with that heavy foot, all of that, and with the vocals,
the heavy feet, bro.
All of that,
the heavy feet, bro.
Baby, you know?
Heavy feet, bro.
Ow! I laid me down to sleep with all that coming at you. It was like the Big Bang, you know?
Yeah.
It was too much to deny. The chord was heavy. The drums was heavy. The bass was heavy. The philosophy was heavy. The singing was gospel. It was like, that's when it started to gel. And that's when they became this, that's when they took it over.
We have left off the Mothership Connection. Yep, Mothership Connection album. Yep.
The Mothership Connection.
That was after the Chocolate City single.
Chocolate City, which concept was black people in places you didn't expect them to be. In the White House, Secretary of State, and all of that. So
I played one of their songs.
It went on very
Just
well.
like in one of my
you don't have black people. You don't see black people for the most part.
People say like back in the day.
Only one you saw was Aurora on Star Trek. So
I thought it was through with the Bulldogs episode.
The Mothership Connection is just got so much power, so much concept, so much vision in it. It's hard to compare it to other music because it's spiritual, but it's in its own context.
Use the street language, use the street slang. People understood it. People related to it. Don't step on my funk, uncut funk, the bomb. Bringing music, get your shit. You know what I'm saying? It was the coolest thing out there.
You knew him as this guy from the street that just like anybody else, you know. And he got with his homeboys and he took his whole homeboy crew.
Yeah.
And they did these big productions, but it was all based in streets.
He did those productions, bro.
So it's kind of like you can look at him like he's like me, you know. I can relate to him.
So you had the P-Funk All-Stars in full effect at that point.
Yeah.
And then the Mothership Connection takes the
Fuzzy was in another picture.
Other intergalactic, interplanetary level. It's full of affirmation. You got all it is truly needed to save a dying world from its funklessness. That's what it says.
We got a whole history of music.
Say what they need
on one record.
That's what they said.
Fred, Maceo, and Boots, and myself, Bernie.
They gonna see the words like say
all
what
of
they
that was
need.
the Mothership Connection. All of that was connected to all of us.
It's going in quick.
Want you to know that the mothership has landed.
There's the Mothership.
Time to
The
tell
Mothership is
the
there.
motherfucker.
Back in the
Direct
days.
to you from Chocolate City. May I present Parliament Funkadelic.
George Clinton had a sense that his band was the hottest, the largest, the strongest, and the heaviest in the business. And Neil Bogart, the owner of Casablanca Records, had a sense of giving people the biggest and most outrageous show.
That's how Casablanca. That's how Casablanca got. That's how Casablanca Records got owned by
man, we're gonna buy these Cadillacs. So everybody wanted to buy big cars. And
that's
George was like,
that's the Mothership what George was telling them.
We should take out money and invest it in this spaceship. And they were like, what? You know, what the fuck you talking about? You know?
Yeah. That's what George Clinton is doing in the 70s. They opened up the microphone to
We started to tour with the Mothership.
The Mothership was already there with George Clinton stepping right out of it. You see George Clinton stepping right out of it. Right here coming with whatever reason. There's Fuzzy Haskins.
We had Star Child, Bootsy, Dr. Funkenstein, Brides of Funkenstein, and Booty Snatchers, and all that on the stage, a big production.
This is back in the 70s, and it wasn't like black acts had like huge budgets, you know, like a Kiss or somebody like that. So they were really doing it.
They did so much
It was really like a Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey circus.
Yeah.
Now add the props in the science fiction, add the Aqua Boogie bird flying around,
20-foot shade to go across the stage,
mothership coming down,
giant pyramid with eyeballs.
Crazy wigs, crazy hats.
I used to fly in the air. They had me
flying bird.
One day they couldn't get me down.
Now, there have been shows before and since that have that much glitter and technology, but there was something about the message and the scope of that show that still resonates today, because it was really one of the first black spectacle concerts.
Once they kicked off the landing of the mothership, everybody's show had to go. You know?
All we need, let us in return is never out. All we need is a funk. We gotta have the funk.
P-Funk is all these theatrics and stuff on top of pure, real, hardcore musicianship.
Now, how's that for promotion? How's that for promotion? When the promotion is already good, take that.
You have about 15, 16 people on stage who are all, by the way, some of the greatest musicians you'll ever see. They're all, like in these all different kinds of characters.
Dr. Funkenstein, clones of Funkenstein, Star Child, Cerdos.
Yeah. Everybody knows Cerdos, man.
Give it a double up.
Then you had Michael Hampton, who would wear a fencing mask. You never even really got to see Michael Hampton. He was a guitar player. You had Gary Schroeder wearing
Michael Hampton was always one of those people that was alive, bro.
I used to steal those towels from the Holiday Inn. I'd put about 4 holes in the side, strap it around my butt. I was good to go.
And it's really, honestly, it's not even about the clothes, but it is. Because what it is about the person behind it. Like, if you can do that on stage, or if you can perform that way, if you can do it with a diaper, it's kind of like, it's more of a freedom thing than just throwing on something.
You had a series of drummers. You had singers that were sexy. You had Dawn Silver and Lynn Mabry. You had Jeanette and Debbie and the girls coming out. And, we had our own little go-go girls out there.
Here are a bunch of entities that could have been made hit records on their own, all in this super group that each part's rich. Follow what you want. I'm just going to stare at the horn players and listen to the horn players. I'm just going to follow the keyboard player. I'm just going to watch George. He's crazy.
Yeah.
I used to stand on the side of the stage and watch how he controls the audience, how he watches, and he doesn't miss anything, how he can control the band, the singers,
he haven't missed it.
The drummer.
George Clinton never missed all of it.
I'll follow his right foot.
George Clinton never misses
I'm
that.
mess with his left foot.
Clinton never misses it.
His right foot is always on. His left foot, not always. You know what I mean? With his right foot, I'll follow that to the end of the world. You know what I mean?
Y'all say
it. He's probably got about more than 3 or 4 sides, maybe about 8 or 9 characters in there. There's a whole lot of people in there.
George is a trickster. He's one of the ultimate jokesters and tricksters, and he can fool you into thinking you're getting something serious and it's really silly, and then he can act a fool.
Oh, god damn you, Hassan Piker! Look at the good YouTubers going with their fucking videos. God damn you, Hassan Piker!
He's very knowledgeable about a lot of things that go on in life, like the way things are the way they are, why we do what we do, why we play the music that we play, why we feel the way we feel, why others feel the way they feel.
If George had any bad side, I would say it would be being too nice, too naive.
You have the withdrawn person, and then you have Dr. Funkstein.
P-Funk becoming a way of life, a style of life, a lifestyle. I think right after Mothership Connection, the fans started joining up, as fan club members. They started becoming geepies with Bootsy and Funketeers with us.
And then you got these other guys like running around with these skeletons hanging all off the skull bones. You big wolves with teeth.
They ran with that. They ran with that shit. They ran with that shit, dog. They ran with it.
They believed it.
They ran with it.
The P-Funk slogan, and
they ran with it.
Men, women, children just running around throwing up these P-Funk slogans like it was some military regulation.
They did this with the P-Funk. They did that P shit. They threw up this. They threw up this.
Communication, but we have the album covers that our fans could join the group because everybody felt like it's part of the group.
From the ocean comes the 75, the P-Funk era is a polar funkadelic thing.
The Motor Booty Affair. Yeah, this is a big one. Not your average 50-yard dash of funk. The Olympics, cross-country
The Motor Booty Affair.
From
the Motor Booty Affair.
1975 through 1979, P-Funk music on the charts. Tear the roof off the sucker. We Want the Funk.
Casablanca got owned by Polygram after they closed down.
On the map. And from that point on, it was a variation on the theme until the more electronic elements of funk showed up, which of course P-Funk pioneered very shortly afterward with Flashlight in 1978 and Aqua Boogie coming along shortly thereafter.
Aqua Boogie and Flashlight.
Collins and the Rubber Band had a string of hits. While Parliament was doing it, the only one missing was Funkadelic, who we was about to hear from them.
Now, we were finished touring. We were so tired of touring, we were ready to go fishing and have fun. But in the meantime, we had done an album for Warner Brothers with Funkadelic. And his record was loaded with hits.
Yeah. One Nation Under a Groove album. 1978 is One Nation Under a Groove album that came out.
I mean, it was light years in time ahead of its time, but it was, really speaking to things years past in terms of a black nation that was coming of age, but it was really for everybody. One Nation Under a Groove transcended this notion of a black thing, but it was a funk thing. And if you are the one, then you were part of the P-Funk Nation.
P-Funk was its own language. So when you heard that language, you recognized it. Sometimes it wasn't how you recognized it last year. They would have like hit song after hit song that hit you in the chest.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always the same formula. Tear the roof off the sucker. We Want the Funk. It was all acoustic instruments, drums, bass, guitar. And then the right year after that, One Nation Under a Groove and Flashlight, all keyboards and synthesizers.
And that's like the first time a record is done with a bass on a synthesizer. So people are like, what the hell is this? It's not a real bass. It's all synthesizers and guitar. So it's like the sound is like something you never heard before.
1978, the Flashlight song was already been performed.
The entrance of Jimmy Morrison, the veteran of the Ohio Players, actually the inventor of the funky worm that put
Bread, bro. What's the man doing all the
bread? One of the most sampled songs
the
in
Jimmy
hip-hop.
Morrison guy.
That
guy got all the bread. That guy surrounded himself with all the bread. Loads of bread, bro.
He's going back in the hole. Look at him going in
Jimmy
the hole.
Morrison guy surrounded himself with all the bread. All the real loads of bread.
Woo! He did that for them. But after he became too psycho for Ohio Players, George pulled him in. He wound up with P-Funk.
Flashlights.
It got so big at one point that George had started splitting up and taking all of these talented individuals that were within his organization and going in and getting record deals with different companies.
So he had the Brides on one label. He had Parlette on another label. He had the Horny Horns on another label.
Fred Wesley.
And Parliament Funkadelic on
Fred Wesley. He used to be on the James Brown band.
Aqua Boogie, baby. Come on with it, dog. Talk to him one more time, girl.
Playing on my back. Rhythm in my back. I can't do my thing underwater. I got string attached to my back. Could you pull my string? I can't do my thing underwater.
Every time we looked around, we had another record coming from someplace. And that smashed. And by the time we finished that tour, came back, again, we were ready to rest. And we did one Uncle Jam, and we figured, okay, this
Uncle Jam won too.
Yeah, Knee Deep come out.
I heard that.
record really was a way of just knocking out the
decade
at number one.
Not just Knee Deep song. Yep. Walter Junior Morrison,
that
bro.
Was smashing.
His name was already on that record, bro.
Bootzilla smashed.
Walter Junior Morrison, remember the guy who had surrounded himself with all loads of bread?
It's ironic that for the average radio listening fan, Nothing was ever heard from
No
them.
black man would
Funkadelic
ever
did not
surround
have a radio
himself
hit
with all
after
these
that.
loaves of fucking bread.
Being aware of the
Never,
non-ending condition
ever
of our
happened.
radically
In my
non-logical,
wildest dreams, see
necessary,
that.
and yet free and responsible nature.
All the documentaries and all the interviews about George and all the inside talk is that it fell apart in 79.
Yep.
Even George himself realized you only get 3 or 4 years of commercial appeal, pop appeal, anybody.
Yeah.
To me, planned obsolescence is a reality. I don't care how good anything is doing. Sooner or later, it's got to slow down and stop for a minute. And then something else take over.
He called the next album "Glory Hella Stupid."
The Glory Hella Stupid album. The Glory Hella Stupid album.
Casablanca Record and Film Works.
And he asked Overton Lloyd. He said, "Make me a jackass, make me a donkey, because we just had 3-4 years of popularity, and they're about to get rid of us now."
The Glory Hella Stupid album. Jesus Christ!
I once heard George say that, "Oh, you're a genius when you're popping, but when you're not popping, you're just another crazy
I bet
artist."
Casablanca
And
Records
I'm about to
was
go
going to
back
release that
into being
record too.
perceived as a crazy artist. So he made himself a jackass.
A jackass on the cover, man. A jackass on the cover of that album, bro. Pin the tail on the funky. That's what they call it, that?
Things with your fingers and toes. I've been digging.
Oh no, the elephant nose.
Trumpetulation was actually the last Parliament album.
That's what he did. That's what he did their final show.
You better jam.
That's what Coleman did their final show.
Latest album, Trumpetulation.
Coleman did their final show.
I can dig it.
Back in '79, Parliament was still with Casablanca. Funkadelic was with Warner Brothers at that time too. So Neil Bogart dies. That just really kind of like screwed everything up.
A lot of people think
Casablanca got owned. Casablanca got owned by Polygram.
It has something to do with the group. Finally coming off the road for a while, slowing down, whatever.
So after Neil, for us, it was like, wow, damn. Is it over? Where's another Neil Bogart? It's like, I don't know, Bubba, but we're going to keep on funking anyway.
Neil leaving the company did slow down the ability to maneuver with the Casablanca, but we was strong on our own.
The entourage was getting bigger and bigger. The fact that George would work with any gifted kid, anybody who had a little something to say, eventually the group is like 50, 60, 70 people strong.
Yeah.
And you had greedy lawyers. Everybody was skimming off the top.
And to keep everybody happy must have been a big deal. So yeah, the bottom fell out of it a little bit.
The record industry went through a crash in '79 as a result of disco anyway. They had been promoting so much of this worthless stuff.
We had to do something to survive, so George decides to go solo.
And it took a couple of years before he could get recharged, reloaded, a new deal as George Clinton.
He really didn't want to go solo, though. So he was scared. He was scared. But now we have to come
George
up with
Clinton
some
is
music.
scared to go
we have to come
solo,
up
Gary.
with something. So we come up
George
with
is
this
scared to go
track with
solo,
all this
Gary.
backwards stuff.
He had no choice but to go solo.
So George come running in the studio, snot running out of his nose, thinking his career is all over with. Oh, now, because what else can you do? Go to drugs.
Wow.
So I guess the
LSD
make
shit.
him think,
That
man,
LSD
your
shit.
career's over.
LSD
He
shit.
come in there hollering, "Hey, life all off for us.
That LSD
Make
shit.
it compete all the dogging." After he got it on, he left. So now we're looking at each other crazy, like, okay, so what did he just do? What was that all about? I remember saying, I don't know what y'all gonna do. What I'm gonna do is, whatever the heck he did in there, I'm gonna go build all around that and see what we come up with. And he come back the next day, a couple of days, come back talking about he's gonna fix his parts. I said, you can't do that. He said, why can't I do that? I said, because I done built everything around what you did. He said, well, wait a minute, play what I did. What did I do? I said, this is what you did. You was talking about the dog.
Yeah, this is a
Atomic Dog from computer games. 40 years in the making. Courtesy of Capitol Records.
I'm on it, yo. House dogs, dog.
I already played that video through my live show once already. All on top of the George Clinton interview and everything. As I came back from New Pizza.
You had Atomic Dog, which you knew was P-Funk. It wasn't just George Clinton stepped off and went solo. George was like, what will work for us? Well, my name isn't burnt. You know, if Parliament, Funkadelic, these names are burnt, let's use the name George Clinton now. People have been reading the album covers, George Clinton. But it was still a Parliament Funkadelic album.
All of a sudden, there's some beef with George Clinton and Warner Brothers. Then
first record we put out,
Prince got problems.
It showed that we were still on it.
And Prince got a problem with Warner Brothers too.
Right there, dude.
Prince got beef with Warner Brothers too.
One. Billie Jean 6 months, Atomic Dog 6 months.
Years ago.
What George Clinton did with Atomic Dog really set in motion the whole thing for the 80s in terms of the electro funk beat, in terms of this way of dealing with the black sexuality in the urban reality in a way that was cool and funky and yet spoke the truth.
It wasn't just a song, you know, but it just became a way of life for guys, you know, to be a dog, you know. So
it's affirming the natural essence of black folks and people in general, and yet it's modern, it's futuristic, all at the same time.
Yeah.
George Clinton had reinvented himself. He had reinvented a sound. So that resonated throughout the next 4 albums that George Clinton was doing.
P-Funk was alive and flourishing in the 80s from a listener standpoint.
Yeah. How much more time you go
shouldn't have bit fish. Man is nuclear fission, but the fish on his line is bigger in his mind than the reality of the reel he has to reel it in. He was talking about the whole nuclear age. You know what I'm saying? Some of my best jokes are friends, R&B skeletons in the closet, computer games.
In the 80s, George did a lot of collaborations with a lot of different people, and one of those people was Prince.
I'm going down to Alphabet Street. I'm gonna come. This girl that I meet, I'm gonna talk so sexy. She want me from my head to my feet.
We couldn't get a record deal. Now, Prince had Paisley Park going at that time.
Yeah, that's connected with Warner
Prince
Brothers.
was a fan of ours.
Paisley Park is connected. Paisley Park was connected with Warner Brothers / Paisley Park / Warner Brothers.
Writing.
That's that same record.
Trying to bring the funk back together again, keeping it alive.
Yeah.
Oh, and George also introduced the Chili Peppers. I think it was Rick Rubin's idea, but he produced the Chili Peppers in the 80s.
Yeah. Chili Peppers were already on Paint the White House Black. They got featured on there. They got featured on Paint the White House Black. That's how they got featured.
Well, he was going to stay where the groove was. He
Paint the White House Black.
How to do that.
George Clinton, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre,
older than him,
Yo-Yo,
people 3 times
Cam, Laidback,
where the groove is at.
Flavor Flav and Chuck D.
Hello? Yo, Q. What's up, Mr. George? Come on through, man. We're having a little get-together. I don't know, man. Your get-togethers are kind of wild. Come on, man. You know it's one nation under a groove. I know we one nation. Come on through, man.
All right.
I'll be there.
When the hip-hop world came into P-Funk, it was via James Brown.
Naturally, after all the James Brown samples were used up, the groove, the head, the way you nod your head to it, it was time for P-Funk.
Funk is the DNA of hip hop. It's where you can clone a record. Cloning and sampling is basically the same thing.
A lot of rap music was based on funk samples, you know, sampling of James Brown and Sly Stone and Funkadelic, you know, the Meters, you know, those kind of were the teachers of the hip hop producers. Like hip hop producers didn't go to school and study music.
Most of those P-Funk producers, those samplers and loopers,
they got them doing
were
it.
Teenagers and young kids that went
They
to
got
the
them
original
doing it,
P-Funk
bro.
concerts, the P-Funk Earth Tour, the landing of the mothership back in the day, and they peeped game, and they saw that, and they said, that's the kind of gangster I want to be.
So when you look at a George Clinton, even though it was otherworldly, I think the thing that appeals to the rap community is it was still street at the same time. So see, it's not really about just being, you know, different. You got to have some kind of connection.
You know, especially in the beginning of hip hop, that was what it was all about, was the bottom and the lyrics, you know, the bottom and finding some hook to redo. So the fact that, you know, George and Parliament had both those elements pretty down better than anybody, I think. You know, is pretty irresistible to hip hop.
Let's see, the first groups in the late 80s to like get us out of James and into George was probably Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim, EPMD especially.
De La Soul, in their groundbreaking album in 1989, 3 Feet High and Rising, they sampled a lot of P-Funk. The big hit was Me, Myself, and I.
They sampled that Knee Deep shit. They sampled that Knee Deep song too. They sampled that Not Just Knee Deep song.
Is it just my De La Soul? What I do ain't make believe. People say I sit and try, but when it comes to being De La, it's just me, myself, and I. It's just me, myself, and I.
The group that explained what the P-Funk connection was Digital Underground.
Too much like Tupac was in Digital Underground.
Now as the record spins around, you recognize this sound. Well, it's the
Tupac was in Digital Underground when he did something called Do What You Like.
But we're usually on a serious tip. Check it out. Tonight we're gonna flip the trip and let it all hang out tonight. We're gonna say what we like.
We were definitely offspring of George Clinton and Bootsy, the whole philosophy. You know, just a lot of people were sampling P-Funk, but they weren't living by it. And we want to live by it. Everybody's good. We're all invited. Come on, yeah, he could be in the group too. Yeah. Throw a midget in the mix.
Get him in. Little guy in there.
And then they come with this whole discussion
Throw the little guy in
about
there,
the
huh?
life of Funketeer.
Don't throw the little guy in that shit. Throw the little guy in the mix, bro.
Witness P-Funk and how that makes you a Funketeer yourself.
Come on, do the Humpty Hump. Come on, do the Humpty Hump. Check it out, y'all. Do the Humpty Hump. Just watch me do the Humpty Hump. Yeah, do you know what I'm doing? Doing the Humpty Hump. Come on, do the Humpty Hump. Do the Humpty Hump.
If it feels good, do it. If it sounds good, taste it. You know, those are George's words. So we did consider ourselves sons of the P.
Check it out. First I went to the sound like my leg was broken, shaking and twitching, kinda like I was smoking. Crazy, whack, funky. People say you look like MC Hammer on crack, Humpty.
You have P-Funk just giving you the formula, blessing you with their magic wand. Now go ahead, and people built empires off of little chunks off the P-Funk rock.
Is it Dre? Is it Dre?
Let Me Ride came out.
Every single day
That's Dr. Dre.
Yo, but I ain't tripping, I'm just kicking it. While my D's keep spinning and these hoes keep grinning, I'll be holding in my 6-4. What everybody saying.
As things got real heated in the late 1980s and early 1990s, this music from the West Coast came out, and these West Coast rap groups cranked up the volume on the beats, cranked up the thump, cranked up the bass keyboard loops, and that puts you right there in the pocket with this P-Funk sound.
Dr. Dre was very influential in that, in the Chronic album. You know, hip hop is so driven on just drum and bass, and that, you know, Parliament, George Clinton, they still own the best bass lines ever written.
They ain't P-Funk oriented. They ain't P-Funk oriented.
Dre Day, Snoop Doggy Dogg.
They ain't P-Funk oriented.
All those songs, not just Knee Deep.
It's that bass is in your face and you can feel it pounding through your chest.
Ice Cube said something to me one day that was profound. He said, hey, Frankie, he said, all we need y'all to do is keep doing what you do, so we can keep doing what we do.
Until Andre 3000 and Big Boy came around. They came around in the early 90s, bro. They came out with songs that's been revolutionizing the norm.
When I started to produce after our first album, I started getting into the record covers, and there was a lot of rappers out at the time, and I knew that the only way that we could make our mark and live up to the name Outkast is to do our own thing, So when you're researching these records and you're going through album covers and you're attracted to the bands that you like. So when you look at Sly Stone, Prince, Funkadelic, Sun Ra, all these bands, they all had their own thing going on, and I knew at that point in time that's the team that I'm on.
Yep, the overhead. That's like this. That's a hit, bro. It's a hit. It's at the end.
P-Funk today, like P-Funk when it first came out, had a number of layers and a number of levels and a number of tentacles that reached out in different realms of music.
P-Funk simply is what time it is, because everybody that has been in the music industry that has records out all use a line, they use a verse, they use a part of the music in their live set. Everybody I know, everybody.
And George says funk is his own reward, and it's still managing to survive.
He was able to create a whole nother style of music called funk, and wherever he was at in his head, turned out to be something that we all wanted to sing to.
He's the groove man. That's his contribution. So he's the raw. He's like, when you think funk, he is the rawest of it.
Right now, as we speak, as you're watching this, George Clinton's on tour somewhere. You know what I'm saying? And there's a Parliament record on the radio right now, and there's P-Funk being played at a party right now, and there's a brand new rap song getting made today that reuses P-Funk.
P-Funk is forever coming. I go for coming. Come and think of it, I think of it, and then I come. P-Funk never going anywhere. It's always here, it always will be here.
A good evening. Do not attempt to adjust your radio. There is nothing wrong. We have taken control as to bring you the show. We will return it to you as soon as you are grooved. Welcome to station WEFUNK, better known as We Funk, or deeper still, the Mothership Connection, home of the extraterrestrial brothers, dealers of funky music, P-Funk, Uncut Funk, the bomb.
Coming to you directly from the mothership. Top of the top and everywhere. 500,000 kilowatts of P-Funk power. So kick back, dig, while we do what you do.
All right, that's it, man. That's it. We over, man. We over, man. We over, man. We over this. We over, man. We out. Rest in peace to my mother, Doreen, at the movie Coleman.